Hey guys, did you guys know what a positive behaviour support plan in the context of disability is? So, guys, let's jump in. A positive behaviour support plan is a document that is for someone who has difficult or challenging behaviours or a trauma background that has maladaptive coping behaviours. However, there's a couple problems with those. So let's jump in and start discussing what a positive behaviour support plan looks like, how it needs to be carried out, and the problems. So, first things first, the person who can design a positive behaviour support plan is a mental health professional, along with a occupational therapist or a physical therapist. So, they do also have to so the clients do have to have a behaviour needs assessment. So a behaviour needs assessment is literally what it sounds like, where the psychologist or other mental health professional comes in and assesses what needs aren't being met. Because we must remember that communication is a form of behaviour, and behaviour is a form of communication. So if that person can't communicate their needs, they're going to use behaviours to get it. So we've all thought about the naughty kid. They're getting attention. They may not be getting positive attention, but they're getting attention. So once they've gone through the unmet behaviour needs, is there appropriate, and let me emphasise, appropriate medication that can be used to minimise difficult, challenging behaviours as well? So that might be someone who sleeps all day and wanders at night. That might be someone who's not entirely attached to reality. A medication that doesn't cause drowsiness, that allows them to participate in society to the best of their ability, that's not a chemical restraint. So, guys, just as a side note, chemical restraints are medications that are used to control someone's behaviour to make a support worker or caregiver's job easier that has not had an appropriate use of medication form filled out. So an appropriate use of medication form is a form that if you are on certain classes of medication, so that will alter your thinking. So these being benzodiazepines, so you things like Valium, trade name, your certain classes of epilepsy medications if the person doesn't have a seizure disorder. Then you have things like psychotropic medications. These need to be used with appropriate level of training as well. So this being that not just putting them on the medication, but having behavioural and occupational therapy skills put in place. So talking to someone, working through that trauma, whether that be through guided meditation, whether that be play therapy, whether that be drama therapy, there's a lot that can be done. However, I was talking to someone yesterday. The client has a positive behaviour support plan, but the problem is that the support workers were only aware of parts of the plan. So this is a case where privacy and information sharing needs to be considered. So this is a case where essentially getting the client's consent, the parents or the caregiver's consent to share that whole plan. Because a positive behaviour support plan is useless if you don't have it enforced and used. I've recently put up on the blog post a post that I've seen firsthand of where a person would have benefited from a positive behaviour support plan. The situation could have been prevented if house policies and procedures were followed and the person involved, the support worker involved, has a familiar relationship with management. And this is more common than people think. Some organisations, this is great, there's a separation, there's communication. I know my community access team is a husband and wife team, but they have very much a separation of roles, and the support workers are given license within reason to help that client to live their best life. But in a housing situation, there are certain things that need to be done, especially because the cell house involved was a rental. And this is where having a really good support team and team of support workers in the house that understand the clients, understand their behaviour needs, especially if they do have behavioural or a psychosocial disability. Things like autism, ADHD, mental health issues such as schizophrenia, paranoid thinking, delusional thinking as well. But the other key thing is when a client speaks up and complains, believing that client, understanding what that client is saying, doing a independent investigation. That might not be going to the commission or police. It might be sending a support worker who doesn't have an agenda but is within the organisation to sit people down separately, see what their perspective is, to get to the bottom of it as well. Because the issue with this situation was no one was held accountable except the clients. This is a classic case of victim blaming because the clients weren't getting the support they needed. Just let me repeat that. In a cell house, the clients weren't getting the support they needed. And so this is where a positive behaviour support plan and sticking to the routines would have been beneficial. So a positive behaviour support plan does tie into restrictive practices. So I do have a playlist on restrictive practices and I'm doing an update on that as well. But basically, restrictive practices are exactly what they sound like. Restricting a person's access to their environment, to people, to resources. And resources could be money, clothing, food, transport. So restricting their freedom of movement, and restricting their access to certain areas of their environment as well as using aids. So if a person is in a mobility belt, but they can't move without that mobility belt or a two-person lift, and there's only one person on, that can be considered a restrictive practice. However, if the person has a care plan that says that they need to sit for an hour a day, and another person comes on because the person needs a rest break, that belt needs to be taken off and then put on. But some people will leave that on. That's just one example. And then in the extreme, there is chemical restraints, and they are far too often used as well. And then there are things like that need their own video, but the misuse of guardianship and supported decision making. I'm under supported decision making. It is my mum. We do have the documentation in place, but my mum wants the best for me as well. So, as we've seen on other platforms talking about the Office of the Public Guardian, that people do start to go on a power trip, start to play God in people's lives. And they do wonder why people get frustrated, act out, get annoyed, when in the past there's been no behavioural issues. This essentially is why, because their choices and their freedoms are limited. And I saw a really good post on LinkedIn about this quite recently, that it was saying that choices are not freedom when they are given by the support provider. So sometimes it is necessary to give the best of 2 or 3 choices to not overwhelm a client. But when a client has worked in the past in a very high level job that has responsibility, they're going to react badly to being told they can't, especially when, as part of their role, they had to be up on medication laws, they had to be up on restrictive practices laws. And so, guys, this is the start of my series on safety. Well, no, it's second one. I'm filming this quite fatigued. So it's part of my series on safety and restrictive practices. And guys, I hope you're liking the storytime videos. And if you're enjoying the content, we're up to 54 watch hours on this channel. Really hoping to get to 60 by the end of the month. As of time of recording, we're at June. Is it June? Well, yes, it is June. So, guys, let's try and get that happening. And guys, thank you for watching. And guys, I will see you guys in the next video.